Hello, this is Joan with Coffee Reviews, and today we will be reviewing day 2 of KaffeBox's Advent Calendar, featuring the Las Margaritas Honey Villalobos from Kafferaven. There's a little KaffeBox container right there. Alright, so I am going to be checking which roaster each coffee is each day before I brew it, just the roaster, because I want to see if they have specific details on how to brew their coffee. And Kafferaven does. They have a 15:1 coffee to water ratio at 201 degrees on their kettle. They actually have it in Celsius, but I wanted to check that because I always like to go with the suggestion of the coffee roaster on how to brew their coffee. I typically do 16.6 to 1 on my coffee to water ratio. And with each coffee post they have on KaffeBox's Instagram, they have a comment and a little excerpt about the coffee roaster. So with Kafferaven, they say it was started in 2013 in Gothenburg by Per Norby, and it was with a clear goal to buy, roast, share the best coffee they could, and never cut down on the quality. So this is my first time hearing of Kafferaven, and this is the third coffee roaster I've heard out of Gothenburg, Sweden. So I guess Gothenburg is a bit of a coffee hub in the Scandinavian Nordic coffee world. So I guess I have to head to Gothenburg one day and try out all these places in person. But let's start talking about this coffee specifically now. So as I started brewing it, I could smell in the bloom it came off as a pretty nutty coffee. And to no surprise, when I first started sipping this coffee, it had a pretty nutty finish to it. I don't think it takes an expert to kind of tell. If you've drank enough coffees, then you can kind of tell when something smells either super fruity, super nutty, super chocolatey, just based off the bloom. And it definitely did as soon as I started drinking it. But the first thing that came to mind as I started drinking this coffee was a very high apple acidity. And given that I didn't know what I was drinking to that point, I kind of assumed it was maybe a Central or a South American wash or honey processed coffee, and it did turn out to be a red honey processed Costa Rica. So not really much of a surprise. As I was sipping on the coffee a little more and let it cool down a little more, I was getting some more fleshy fruits, but the thing that was definitely the most prominent was that really high apple acidity and the nuttiness. I can't overstate how notable those things were in this coffee. Pretty richer bodied coffee too, and I think that couldn't be attributed to a higher concentration than what I'm used to of coffee to water. I'll go ahead and put up the tasting wheel right now so you can see what I was getting, and it's kind of funny, the tasting wheel is actually symmetrical if you cut it down between the finish and the stone fruit. Right, it just turned out that way, but the two most prominent things are the body, higher than I think I'm used to, and then the acidity, which as it's cooled down, the acidity has definitely dropped. I think the saltiness is the one thing I probably could have put a little higher if I was being really gracious with the highness of the saltiness. But overall, the rest of the things, some nice smokiness, and pretty much the best thing I can say about this coffee so far is it had great balance. And I always love to praise coffee roasters when they can create a coffee that has really nice balance. I do like the extremes a lot of the time, but if it's not going to be your flavor profile, which in this case it's not, the balance of a coffee is really nice to have. So why didn't I like this? It's mostly because I don't like apple acidity. I just don't like apple flavor notes in coffee to begin with, and I don't like nuttiness in coffee. I can enjoy them from time to time, but they're just not my first choice for coffee. And these were definitely the two most prominent things here. I think that makes it really easy for people to suggest this to. People that do enjoy their acidic apples and people that do enjoy the nuttiness of their coffee. I think those stone fruits, those fleshy fruits, those things that kind of come at the end when it cools down a bit, are kind of an added bonus that was probably my favorite part of this coffee in addition to the balance of this coffee. But for a first overall impression of Kafferaven, I would say I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of the coffee itself. It just happens to be that it's not my flavor profile. And I think that's what I say a lot with a lot of really good coffee roasters that I know are good, but hit me with coffees that just personally aren't my taste. But I think I'll leave this review at that. And given that this is my first impression of Kafferaven, if you've tried any coffees from Kafferaven, let me know which ones you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of them as a whole, as a roaster. And if you're enjoying the content, give this a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I still have 22 more days of Scandinavian coffees to review from this advent calendar, so I'm looking forward to all of those. But this right here has been a review of Kafferaven's Las Margaritas Honey Villalobos, or Villalobos. It's a red honey processed, Costa Rica. Thank you for watching.